The biggest mistake you'll make in Assassin's Creed Shadows is not petting all the animals you find, because when you do, you can unlock them as pets at your hideout, and this also happens sometimes when you're painting animals as well. All right, I've got some actually useful tips and mistakes for you to avoid. Let's go. Let me know any tips and tricks you have in the comments down below. We'll start with a general theory idea, and then we'll get into some more nitty-gritty stuff. Exploring is one of the core things you'll do in any Ubisoft open world, but there's really two ways to do it here. That is either with Nawe or Yasuke. Now, both of these characters are different in the way that they move in terms of how fast they can sprint throughout the world, parkour, stealth, all that stuff. Obviously, Yasuke is significantly more overpowered in terms of combat capabilities, whereas Nawe is more about that stealth, that parkour, and those aspects of the game. Now, if you just want to explore the world, it's definitely more beneficial to do so as Nawe, because she can access so many places that Yasuke just simply cannot. Because of her grappling hook, she can climb up the top of buildings to scout the top of them, as well as just being able to get those sync points at the top of those castles and those other locations. But also, just generally speaking, Yasuke just isn't that fun to just do the overall exploration with, because he moves so slow. He also can't access just even general parkour things that Nawe can do. You can see in this footage, just in terms of the movement, as well as breaking ropes, different things that will happen when you do explore and do things with Yasuke that doesn't happen with Nawe. It's just a lot easier for that process. And then just switching to Yasuke if you absolutely need to say do a kata or something like that. Obviously, it's up to you. I've just found that flow of exploration to be significantly faster and more enjoyable with Nawe. And as soon as I stopped doing it with Yasuke, I actually enjoyed the exploration stuff a little bit more. Speaking of those katas for Yasuke, as well as the Kuji for Nawe, you can auto-complete these via a setting in your menu. I was really bad at the Nawe's Kuji-giri ones. Katas are actually pretty hard as well. I don't know what it is with me in quick time events. I just struck... Apparently, I struggle with speaking as well, but the quick time events is an issue. I just don't really vibe with them. It's something that I always disable in games that I can if there are accessibility options, but you can actually change this either to simplify it, which will mean you've only got to press, say, one button or two, depending on the complexity of the kata or the Kuji that you're doing, or you can just auto-complete these, where as soon as they start, you literally just sit back and watch, and it'll go through the motions and actually auto-complete it for you. I have actually switched mine to auto, because there is a lot of these in the game, and once you've sort of got the rhythm of them, you know how they work, it's not actually that bad to just switch it to auto and just have them auto-complete, so you can get that knowledge point, because those knowledge points are very important to get that knowledge rank up for your mastery abilities. Something I was doing in the early stages of the game was essentially just treating this like a normal Assassin's Creed game of the modern era, but that's actually not really what it is. There is the hideout feature that's unique to Assassin's Creed Shadows and is a massive benefit. Now you will go here and do the basic tutorial and build the forge, which is fantastic to dismantle your weapons, as well as adding perks to them once you have upgraded it. Definitely recommend you do upgrade it to level 3 as fast as you can, so you can put perks on those legendary gear and all the other buildings that you can do. However, there is actually these secondary buildings outside of the main ones that will actually give you benefits as well. Now, these are typically unlocked by completing or even just activating starting side quests. A good example of this is the tea merchant that'll give you the tea hut. Now, this gentleman is actually found in the Yamashiro era by doing the tea bowls for Rikayo quest, and once you have even just spoken to him and given him one of the tea bowls, you'll actually unlock the tea room, which will increase the efficiency of your rations by 20%. Your rations are your healing items, so anytime that you can get more health when you use them is obviously beneficial. There are other buildings that are great here as well, like the Terra, which is a little altar that you can build that increases your experience gained by 10%. There's another one as well that does increase your ration efficiency as well, but having a look at these and seeing what the requirements are, is they will tell you if they do have a requirement, say offer support to a Setsu merchant or something like that. So make sure you are hunting out these quests and doing them and building these buildings, because they are beneficial. And we'll talk about how to get those resources for the hideouts in a little bit as well. Another resource I wanted to touch on today is actually gold. This is a rare resource that you'll only get a very limited amount of. Typically you get it from completing certain assassinations of those side assassinations that you can get in the different regions. You can get some of them via the Animus Battle Pass as well. More on that stuff in a little bit as well. But the main reason you want this gold and shouldn't use it, at least in the beginning, is to upgrade your gear. So a piece of gold will allow you to upgrade your gear to your current level without spending any other resource, just simply that one piece of gold. The reason you shouldn't use this, especially in the early to mid game, is because the max level here is 60. So actually getting up to that level, it is going to cost you a lot of resources to level that gear up to whatever your current level is as you get into those high levels, especially legendaries that you find very early in the game that are matched to that level that you find. Say like level 5 was one of the ones that I found. Getting that all the way up to like max level would be very expensive. So you want to save that gold for much later down the line. Don't waste it in like the early to mid game. And by the way, leveling up your forge to level 3 will unlock the ability to put perks and legendary perks onto your gear as well. Scouts are a crucial resource that you should be using, not so much for like the map scouting aspect, but basically to smuggle resources back to your hideout. Now, the map scouting that the game does want you to do to find those objectives, you can actually disable this in the settings via the guided exploration option. If you turn this on, it will actually turn this off, so you don't have to use the scouts in this way. This will allow you to use these scouts specifically to smuggle resources. And when you do smuggle resources, by the way, you can actually see what resources you'll get when the season progresses on the map screen on the right hand side. And if you have scouts left over, there is actually a chest in your stable that scouts will put random materials in at the end of the season as well. So make sure you're checking that chest. Now, it is possible to increase the amount of scouts that you have available to you via the study that you can build at the hideout, as well as the Kakarega, and you can refill your scouts at the Kakarega and at those like mini hideouts that you can find out in the world as well by clicking on the option there to spend a little bit of mon to refresh your scouts and get a couple back. Definitely well worth doing, especially just before the seasons progress, is make sure you're smuggling resources, because you will be using those for your hideouts because they are very valuable, as we already discussed. Also, if you like what we do here, consider hitting that like button or subscribing, or the membership program. For just $1, you can get early access to videos like this and all of my other guides, build videos, and those cheeky long form essays we do. Plus, there are other benefits like members only channels in the Discord, merch, and more. So if you like what we do here, please consider hitting that join button or subscribing, as it helps me more than you know. But enough of that, back to the video. Allies, when ranked up, have passive buffs, especially Gen Ojo. He's the main one that I would definitely recommend you run, just regardless of whatever build you're running for Nawe or Yasuke, because once you have ranked him up, which by the way, to rank them up, you'll need to build a dojo and level up that dojo, you'll be able to then rank up your allies. At even just rank 2, Gen Ojo has the passive ability over here, draws the attention of an enemy about to detect you. Essentially what this means, like it has like a couple of minutes cooldown, but basically every time that combat is about to start, the enemy that sees you will just be stunned immediately. And you can use this as well, like as you're entering combat, and say if you assassinate someone else then sees you, they will then get the overhear from Genojo and stun them, and then you can walk over there and assassinate them. Because while they're in that stun animation, you can assassinate them. It works for Yasuke as well. It's just a fantastic passive that you don't even need to summon this ally to do anything. Just simply having him equipped will give you this, and it's a massive buff to any sort of combat encounter, especially if you're trying to maintain stealth with Nawe, or you just want to run in guns blazing with Yasuke. One thing to note with allies as well is you can make a crucial mistake by just playing the game on canon mode. One thing, it does remove all of the romance options in the game, as there are no dialogue options. But because you don't have those dialogue options, you will see when you're trying to recruit allies, there'll be like pop-ups that'll say like this decision will impact the ally, right? Now, if you have canon mode enabled, that can prevent you from getting certain allies because of the canon mode decisions are made for you. So it's just something to note there, that if you have already started the game on canon mode, you're unfortunately out of luck with certain allies, but you will also lose those romance options. I have 2 little things that I wanted to touch on as well. One of them is that the loot in the game, other than the legendary chest, which are obviously static because you get specific legendaries from them, any of the other chests you open in the game where you get like the randomized loot, fun fact, you can save the game and then load that save, and the loot will be different every single time. So say if you have like a location where you find a bunch of chests, or you just like aren't happy with the rewards you get, or you want to just do some save scumming for some reason, you can save the game and then load that save, and you'll get different items from those chests every single time. Just a fun thing I noticed when I was doing some save scumming for taking video footage. Something else that I noticed as well is obviously the free buffs that you can get from shrines. You'll find shrines throughout the world. There is plenty of these around, but there's actually one of these at your hideout. So every time you go back to your hideout, make sure you are praying at this shrine, as it does increase your maximum HP. Great for Nawe and for Yasuke, but mostly for Nawe. The wanted system is a big thing for Assassin's Creed Shadows, as when you're wanted, you will have guardians that will spawn in locations and hunt after you. And if you're just wandering around those locations, everyone will see you and attack you on sight. You can simply avoid this whole mechanic and feature just by taking out the alarms at any of the camps, preventing them from ringing the alarms, or by switching to the other character as they won't actually be wanted. Or once you've upgraded the building and your hideout enough, you'll actually just be able to clear your wanted status using those scouts we were talking about earlier just on the map screen. So you can avoid this whole mechanic simply by doing this, which is well worth doing as the Guardians are a pain to defeat, as well as setting off an entire region's aggro on you is really hard if you're just trying to wander around and do some exploration. Nawe's assassin's tools are extremely overpowered, especially the smoke bomb. You can just smoke bomb the ground. If you ever get seen, enemies inside that will lose sight of you. You can then assassinate them. Some of the elites, you won't be able to immediately assassinate them. You might have to actually like get on some high ground and like hide a little bit, but for the most part, you'll just be able to assassinate the enemies immediately. And then you've also got other options as well. Like obviously the kunai are fantastic here just for ranged stealth kills, as Nawe doesn't have a ranged stealth option. The kunai is that option for her. Also, the bells and the shurikens are a little bit more situational, though the shuriken, especially if you buff it by adding, say, a poison buildup or something like that I have in this build here, you can apply status effects just by swinging shurikens and stunning enemies with them. And if you want to be stealthy with Yasuke, you definitely want to be using a bow, and specifically the silent arrow, which is one of the upgrades in the mastery line for Yasuke. This will allow you to one-shot enemies in the head with silent arrows rather than having to use the normal arrows, and then you can sometimes get your arrows back when you walk over the corpse as well. There are merchants that you'll find throughout the world. It is worth talking to these and seeing what their inventory is. Port traders will give you resources for your hideout. Ornament vendors will give you cosmetics and things for your hideout, and then the gear vendors give you gear. Now, something to speak about for the gear vendor is that they will only show the gear for the character that you're currently playing. If you switch to the other character, you'll see an inventory specifically for that character's gear as well. It's a little annoying. I don't know why you can't see both just by talking to the vendor, but the main reason that you want to talk to these gear vendors isn't to buy gear, though the gear is pretty cheap if you're just looking for some easy upgrades. It's actually for the perks, because gear vendors will actually have perks that you can only get from them. So it is worth hunting them out, talking to them, and buying these perks, because they will come into play when you're trying to make builds later down the line, especially once you have upgraded the forge, and they're pretty cheap to do. So if you come across a gear vendor, make sure you're buying those perks, as they're often the only place you can actually get those specific perks. The last thing I wanted to touch on is actually an important one, and it's something that I was ignoring, and I was ignoring it because I was like, why do I care about this Animus thing? But it's actually important to pay attention to. So in Assassin's Creed Shadows, there is this new like anomalies and Animus quests that you can find. These are on like a weekly rotation, and when you complete them, you'll gain a currency that's to spend in like the free battle pass. You can like claim rewards there. These rewards include things like gold. We already talked about why that's important, as well as other currency that you can trade at the Animus exchange to get some of the store items, as well as the deluxe edition items for free. Now, doing these quests are pretty easy. You'll always have a couple of them on like rotation. Essentially, you just need to go to a location on the map. Typically, it's to take out a target, might be to like loot a specific chest, something like that. You can go to these locations and do them. That'll give you the data fragments, which is the currency that you use to like progress through that battle pass. You can actually get like weapons and armor and stuff for Nawe and Yasuke through this line as well as those upgrades. And then on top of that, you can get keys, which you can actually find keys just in the open world as well. Like you might see the icon, you can just click on it and get like 30 keys as well. But the keys you actually use on the Animus exchange, you can use that to get some of those deluxe edition items or store items that are on like a weekly rotation as well. But let me know anything I've missed in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.